Welcome to the woods. I'm in a slightly different position today because the sun is shining so bright that I couldn't see anything on the camera where I usually sit. So a beautiful spring afternoon. It rained for a couple of hours this morning, but the sun's come out. As you can see behind me, the sky is blue. The birds are singing. And for about the last 2 or 3 hours, I've been pottering around, working in the woods, fixing things, building things, tidying up. Springtime is it's a time of new beginnings, time of rebirth. I can see it all around me in nature. And for anyone who's homesteading or living off grid, you'll understand this next bit. It's a time for tidying up. Historically, it's a time for tidying up. We all would have heard spring cleaning, and there's a reason for that. The winter, that harsh season. Living the way I do, in the middle of the woods in a timber cabin, with livestock to look after and outbuildings to maintain. Winter is harsh and things go wrong, and you do the best you can at the time to rectify these situations and get by. But it's dark by 4 o'clock, and you tend to live much more in tune with nature. So as the evenings draw in, as it gets darker earlier, your jobs finish. The time you can spend on the land, in the land, finishes earlier. And some jobs get pushed back. And come the spring, as the evenings are getting lighter, and it's not torrential rain every day, and it's not blowing a hoolie, it's time to go and tidy up all that stuff you've put to one side through the winter months. And the same goes for the cabin. There's a big spring clean going on. During the winter, I'll often stomp through there with big muddy boots and 7 dogs running through, poorly chickens in cages throughout. And now, in the bright light of spring, it could do with a lick of paint, it could do with a good wash down. So all those things are on the cards. But I wouldn't change the way I live here for 1 minute. Not for a second. I enjoy everything about it. And I understand it's not for everyone. It can be hard work, and it can be completely different to how most people live their lives. I was thinking earlier about the spring clean and the tidying up, and how over the last 4 or 5 years that's just become part of my routine. But it's not something I ever considered or would have had to do living in a 3-bed semi in suburbia, the seasons didn't really mean much back then. There wasn't a lot of difference between summer, autumn, spring or winter. There didn't seem to be any difference once you close your front door and turn on the lights. It could be any time of the day and any time of the year. And the TV showed the same old shows, and there was nothing much to do. And my life now is 1,000,000 miles away from that. And I would never go back. I watched a video last night. I'd planned on talking today about something completely different. But the video impressed me so much that I think it's only fair that I talk about what I saw, what I listened to. It was by a content creator called Asher Logos, and I will post a link to the video in the description. Hopefully, if my fat fingers and technological knowledge will allow me to do that. Sometimes I can, sometimes I just get confused. But the video was called A Return to Nature, a return to the land, a call to return to the land. And it was over an hour, and he spoke about many things, but there were some key points that really kind of hit home. He spoke about what happened 3 years ago, globally, to all of us. He spoke about how that had continued and how wars and plans, intricacies, things like digital currencies, things like 20-minute neighbourhoods or 15-minute cities, censorship, online and in real life. He spoke about all of these things that have affected all of us, and came to the same conclusion that I came to many years ago, which was that the system is not only corrupt and broken, but seems to be spiteful and intent on causing us harm. And he mentioned AI and technology. And I did a video recently pointing out that many of the things that are happening are tied to that, and the reason why. And he said something again that I knew, but it just struck that chord. That our ingenuity in design and technology has created some incredible things. And with the advancement of these inventions, the computer, robotics, technology on the whole, has meant that things that would have taken us a long time to do now take barely any time at all. That with the advent of these things, our lives should be 10 times easier. that you should have 10 times more leisure time than you used to have. But somehow it didn't quite work out that way, did it? With all these advancements and all this technology, we're working harder today than we've ever worked. We're working longer today than we've ever worked. Seems to be that all these advancements only ever seem to benefit a very small percentage of people, whilst the masses continue to toil 7 days, 6 days a week, 40 hours a week, 40 years, 50 years. I listened to an advert on the radio the other week for bus drivers. One of the people speaking was an old gentleman, and he said, I'm 65 years old, and driving a bus gets me out of the house and earning a bit of money. And they advertise this as a positive, whereas in reality that 65-year-old man who's worked all of his life probably needs to continue to work to survive. Something went very wrong along the way. Something is still going wrong, and what they're intending to do with us in the coming years, as I've discussed many times, is not pleasant. And in that video I saw last night, he proposed that groups of people of a like mind get together, buy land, and return to a much simpler, nature-based way of living. Not in one huge group, but in small groups that could be joined, a network, each one able to trade and deal with the other, thus cutting out people's dependence upon this corrupt, malevolent system that so many of us recognise is doing us no good, that wish to leave it but don't know how. It was fairly easy for me to step out of that system, to build a completely different style of life, to become more self-sufficient, giving me many, many more options than people I know. Do I continue to work at all? Do I continue to work less or the same? Is now my choice. Lowered my overheads to nearly zero. So I can do as I please, and it makes it much harder for those that would want to control me to hold anything over my head. So I would urge you all to watch the video, to listen to what is being said. Because this is a global movement about localism. So many people recognise what's going to be happening and are looking, desperately looking for a way out. And as per usual, it will be the few that take those first steps, that overcome the initial problems, that figure out the best way to get the job done. But once that hard work is completed, more and more people will flock to an alternative that is based on nature, natural law, healthy living, traditional morals, standards. Giving those people control over their lives, their future, and the future of their children. It's interesting times ahead. The next decade, we're going to see changes unlike those we've ever seen before. And I'm not trying to say that, I'm not trying to blackpill anyone here. The changes are going to be huge. The control from above is going to be very noticeable. It's going to be a dangerous time for those in power, and they understand that. When everything is changing, when everything is in flux, when jobs are being lost, and people's way of life is changing, that's a very dangerous time for these people. Which is why these control mechanisms are being put in place now. Why voices of dissent are being shunned, censored. They can't afford to have people pushing back. But there is a way forward. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We don't have to be a part of their system. We can start our own. We can reject their system and build a future. Now, I've been working with several groups over several years now to do just this. To buy land, build a community, preserve our culture, we'll get there. These things do take a little time. This is the beginning. I've got plenty more work to do, you lot. Check out the video in the description. Let him know I sent you. Enjoy the rest of your spring afternoon or spring morning, depending on where you're watching. And I'll speak to you soon. Take it easy.